pleasant day to everyone. On your screen is Group 7 and we will discuss plant anatomy and physiology. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Christina Flores, BSA second year, major in animal science. So let's start. The planet Earth contains different living organisms, including plants and animals. We talk quietly bit about animals, but what we often forget is that this planet is filled with such a tremendous variety of different living things, and they are just alive as we are. And so their bodies are designed around their life needs. So the difference between plant anatomy and plant physiology, when we say plant anatomy, it is we learn in our study of human anatomy and physiology, life begins with cells which can be organized into tissues and which can be then assembled into organ and organ system. And this organization hierarchy applies to plants just as it does to human. Plant anatomy is a study of how plants are shaped, built, and sized. Plant anatomy is a branch of botany which is study of plants, and it focuses on the system and structure components that make up a plant. The base, stem, leaf are the three main vegetative organs that make up the average of plant body. Additionally, there are a number of reproductive parts like flower, fruit, and seeds. Example, plants therefore have epidermal tissues that form a protective layer on its surface. They also have a parenchyma tissue usually used to store energy. The vein is pepline of plants are made up of vascular tissues that distribute water, minerals, and nutrients throughout the plant. Combined tissues from organs that they play an even more complex role. On the other hand, plant physiology is a branch of biological science. The study of plants' behavior and function is known as plant physiology, and it includes all the dynamic process necessary for growth, metabolism, reproduction, defense, and communication. Green plants have a capacity of harvesting light energy for life, energy making use of anorganic raw materials. Plants not only provide foods but also supplies and oxygen for breathing. Besides synthesizing organic compound, plants carry out the natural phenomenon or life organism as I mentioned earlier. There are four major parts of plant: the root, the stem, the leaves, and the flower. The function of root is to absorb water and minerals from the soil and also act as an anchor. Stem act like a pillar of plant and it helps to support plants. Leaf is one of the most important part of plant, and it has green pigment called chlorophyll which perform photosynthesis. And the flower help to reproduction. It usually colors, attract bees and other insects. In plants, especially vascular plants, there are two organ systems. Those are shoot system and root system. The root system includes all parts of plants that grow below the ground, and this include root, tuber, rhizomes that has different function in plant. The other portion is the above ground organ system or known as a shoot system. The shoot system includes the vegetation of structured parts of plants and also the reproductive parts of plants. The vegetation parts of plant includes organ like stem and leaves. The other part of plant shoot system, it has reproductive organ, and these organs are often contained within a structure or we known as a flower. So that covers the organs and the organ system of plant, which are organized within the underground or root system and the above the ground or shoot system. Leaves do the main work of providing nutrients to the plant through the process of photosynthesis, which we cover entail in the biochemistry series. Water, gases, and nutrients are moved around the leaves through their veins, which are very tiny tube of xylem and phloem tissue. The difference between xylem and phloem: xylem carry water and minerals. It is dead and non-living tissue. Movement of water and minerals is derived by negative pressure. It has thick cell wall containing lignin. The movement of substance and xylem from the root up to the various section of the plant. Xylem carry water and minerals and salt. From the root to the leaves, xylem transport water and minerals. On the other hand, when we say phloem, it is a carry food materials which plant makes. It is a living tissue. Movement of food materials derived from positive hydrostatic pressure. It has cell wall containing cellulose.
A pleasant day to each and everyone. This is Devlin Limbaga, EPS Agriculture student at Negros Oriental State University at Pamplona Extension. And this is the oral performance task in CAF 2 or Botany, Lesson 4. And I am the assigned to answer the number 5, 6, and number 7 questions. But before that, let me read first the questions. So we have number 5 question. What is annual growth ring? Number 6. Describe each internal structure of the leaf. We have epidermal cell, palisade mesophyll, and spongy mesophyll. And we also have stromata and guard cell. Okay, the number 7 question. What is the role of photosynthesis in plants and why is it important? Okay, let's answer the 3 questions.
Okay, let's answer the question number 5. What is an annual growth ring? So, an annual growth rings is a cells that form. It is arranged in concentric circles. Annual rings show the amount of wood produced during one growth season. An annual formation of wood in plants consisting of 2 concentric layers, one of spring wood and one of summer wood, also called growth ring or tree ring. A growth ring is the ring of growth found in some living organisms such as trees. Some animals such as shells and corals also have annual growthing rings. Counting the growth rings shows how old an organism is or was when it stopped growing. For example, the growth rings in furniture, walls, and other wooden items can be counted. Tree rings grow under the bark, and the bark is pushed out while the tree is growing. The inner part of a growth ring is fast and is known as early wood. The outer portion is the late wood and is denser than early wood. Okay, let's continue to the number 6. Describe each the internal structure of the leaf. We have epidermal cells, palisade mesophyll, spongy mesophyll, stromata, and guard cell. So let's discuss first the epidermal cell. So the epidermal cell is the outermost layer of the leaf, and it is also called epidermis. It consists of the upper and lower epidermis, which are present on either side of the leaf. Each of the epidermal cells has a thick cell wall. The hypodermis is composed of 3.4 layers of small, tightly packed cells that also have thick walls. Next is the palisade cells. Okay, the palisade cells also the internal structure of the leaf. Palisade cells is located at the right below the epidermis and cuticle. In simpler terms, they are known as leaf cells. They are vertically elongated, a different shape from the spongy mesophyll cells beneath them. Next is the spongy mesophyll. The spongy mesophyll cells are covered a thin layer of water. Gases dissolve in this water as they move into and out of the cells. When the plant is photosynthesizing during the day, these features allow carbon dioxide to diffuse into the spongy mesophyll and the oxygen to diffuse out of them. Next is the stomata. Okay, the stomata resemble donuts, a circular pore with a hole in the middle for gas to enter or to leave the plants. The pore consists of two cells, each known as a guard cell. Okay, the guard cell is cells surrounding each stomata. They help to regulate the rate of transpiration by opening and closing the stomata. Okay, let's move on to the number 7 question. What is the role of photosynthesis in plants and why is it important? Now, plants are autotrophs, which means they produce their own food. They use the process of photosynthesis to transform water, sunlight, and carbon dioxide to oxygen and simple sugars that the plant uses as fuel. So that is the role of photosynthesis in plants. So that photosynthesis is very important. This would be the transformation of water, sunlight, carbon dioxide into oxygen that we use to breathe.
That's all, and thank you everyone.
Good day everyone. So I'll be the one to discuss the different taxonomic classification and different taxonomic characteristics. So there are 4 taxonomic classification systems. We have artificial system, mechanical system, natural system, and phylogenetic system. So first, let's start from artificial system. So artificial system are a system was proposed by the first time by Theophrastus. It was a non-phylogenetic system of classification. So the artificial system of classification was based on the presence or absence of new morphological or vegetative characteristics that were just 4 grouping of organisms or differentiating one group of an organism from another. So the characteristic like number and position of stamens, style, or etc. were taken into consideration. The artificial system of classification uses 1 or 2 morphological characteristics for grouping of organisms. So in this system, phylogenetic or evolutionary relationship between organisms were not considered, and it also did not take into account differences at cellular levels like DNA from proteins found in different organisms. Next, mechanical system. So the mechanical classification systems developed at this period was based on the habit as well as organs of fructification such as position, locule, number, and acid number. So these systems uses one or a few selected taxonomic characters to group taxa systems. Next is the natural system. These systems were based on an overall morphological or external resemblance of the plants. So, Charles Darwin proposed theory of evolution, which postulates that the present-day plants have descended from those existing in the ancient past through the series of modifications in response to changing environmental conditions, which means that all present-day plants are related to each other in one way or another. And thus larger the number of characters shared by different taxa and the more closely related they are to each other, this is basis of modern classification. The last is the phylogenetic system. So these systems of classification were based on the overall characters known to the time and emphasis were laid down to reflect the phylogenetic relationship of plants. The classification system proposed after Charles Darwin's theory are mostly phylogenetic and use as many taxonomic characters as possible in addition to the phylogenetic interpretations. So these are expressed in the form of phylogenetic trees or shrubs showing presumed evolution of the groups. It is based on the genetic and phylogenetic relationship between taxonomic characters. So now let's move forward to the different taxonomic characters. So there are 5 taxonomic characters, which are the morphology, anatomy, cytology, palynology, chemical, and molecular. So first, let's start from morphology. Morphology means study of forms that are physically visible characters, which are thus referred to as morphological characters. Morphological characteristics of an organism or its specific components include the shape, size, color, and so on. Morphology is a term that describes structural characteristics and it is essential trait in the classification of the living world. The biological system of classification is referred to as natural classification, in which all features are considered for general resemblance rather than particular differences. Next is anatomy. Anatomy offers restricted value for distinguishing species as groups of less than specific rank because the difference between them are usually quantitative rather than qualitative. Anatomy from backbone of taxonomy, and it is a study of anatomical details of flowering plants, has a long story of its own. A taxonomic characteristics may be defined as any express attribute of an organism that can be evaluated and that has 2 or more discontinuous states or conditions. So the taxonomic value of a characteristic is increase of the biological significance of the characteristic has been determined. Next is the palynology. Palynology is the study of spores and pollen grains. Spores and pollen grains have a number of morphological and structural features. These palynological features have provided a wealth of characters that have been important in inferring phylogenetic relationships of plants. So the characteristics that distinguish the pollen grain of a specific taxon from other taxa can be the following among others. Next is the cytology. Cytotaxonomy is a branch of taxonomy that the uses of the characters of cellular structure to classify organisms. In cytotaxonomy, the chromosomal configuration of an organism is the most widely used parameter to infer the relationship between 2 organisms. The pairing and separation behavior of chromosomes during cell division helps in taxonomic studies. So the chromosome behavior is responsible for the development of aneuploids, polyploids, and also origin of new species. And the last one is the chemical and molecular. Molecular taxonomy is a branch of science concerned with the presence of chemicals within our bodies. It is a method of quickly and precisely identifying specimens. It is based on the interspecific variations. Molecular taxonomy is the classification of organisms on the basis of the distribution and composition of chemical substances, and in addition, molecular genetic methods provide taxonomy with a powerful tool to identify or describe species as they apply to all organisms and other quantifiable characters. Molecular taxonomy is particularly effective in combination with other methods, usually with morphology. So that's how the functions of different characteristics and systems of taxonomy. This is Milica Salitero, a second-year BSc student at Norso Pamplona Extension. Thank you and stay safe, everyone. So good day, everyone. I am Milica Salitero. So I'll be the one to discuss the water movements of plants. So the factors needed for plant growth and a plant growth hormone. So the movement of water in plants require long-distance water movements to survive. All plants have a certain point at which survival is no longer viable. Water can make up around 85% of the fresh weight of leaves. A leaf can evaporate all of its water weight in just 1 hour on a dry, warm, sunny day. The cell's absorption of water must make up for the water lost through the leaves. The movement of water is crucial for absorption of vital mineral nutrients from the soil. Water movement is passively driven by pressure and chemical potential gradients. The bulk of water absorbed and transported through plants is moved by negative pressure generated by the evaporating of water from the leaves, which is what we call transpiration. So this process is commonly referred to as the cohesion tension mechanism. This system is able to function because water is cohesive. It sticks to itself through forces generated by hydrogen bonding. Next is the factors that needed for plant growth. When planting a flower bed or a vegetable garden, it is important to understand what plants need to grow. So there are 4 main factors which can affect the growth of your plants. They are water, light, nutrients, and temperature. So these 4 things affect the growth hormones of the plant, which will either make the plant grow quickly or slowly. So making changes to any of these 4 things can cause stress to the plant, which in turn can change or stunt the growth or improve the growth. So the first is light. Plants have evolved throughout time in different locations throughout the world. For this reason, plants have adapted to different types of light. There are some plants that cannot adapt easily to a new condition. The light and the temperature changes that come in the spring will stimulate plants to break dormancy and start to grow new leaves. So when purchasing plants, it is important to make sure that you have an area in mind to plant them so that they get the amount of sunlight that they require each day. Next is water. In order to survive, plants need to have water. Most plants are made up of nearly 90% water. Without appropriate amounts of water, plants will be stressed and eventually die. Water provides plants with nourishment and hydration. Water that is in the soil will break down minerals and other elements of the soil. When the plants absorb water through their roots, they will also be picking up nutrients that will travel to the cells of the plant. However, providing too much water can also cause plants to die. So it is important that you look up information about how much water your plants need and be sure to provide them with this amount in order to promote healthy growth. Next is the temperature. Weather or temperature plays an important role in plant growth. Plants will slow down or speed up their growth rate based on the temperature. Warm temperature encourages growth and germination. A warmer temperature will actually trigger a chemical reaction inside the cells of a plant, and this will speed up respiration, transpiration, and the photosynthesis process. Next is the nutrients. So there are certain nutrients that plants need in order to grow, which is the carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen are three of the nutrients that plants need. They get this from water and from air. If a plant lacks any nutrient, plant growth can be stunted. So one of the best ways to ensure proper plant growth is to using natural compost or manure in the soil. This will add the missing nutrients to the soil as well as provide new nutrients for the plants. So if you want to have a healthy garden, you could spend months researching all of the plant growth factors. However, the most important thing to keep in mind that if you are practicing sound gardening techniques, you are going to produce healthy plants. Next is the 5 plant growth hormone. Before we proceed to the 5 plant hormones, let's know first what is plant hormones or phyto